A loud metal sound fills the air as the huge iron gates of the fortress slowly close. This place is beyond saving. It is like a cold concrete grave, famous for keeping only the worst criminals alive inside its walls. This is Chung Penitentiary, the final place for the most dangerous criminals in the country. In the quiet hallway that leads to the warden's office, the air feels heavy because of a controversial order. Kang Min, suspension of sentence. Even saying those words feels wrong in a prison like this. Inside the office, a thick hand slowly stirs a cup of coffee. On the man's wrist is a shining Rolex GMT Master 3, its polished steel reflecting the dim light. The room is filled with silent tension as two people sit across from each other at a wooden desk. One is the ruler of this concrete prison. The other is someone from the world of law. The warden leans back in his chair, a greasy and arrogant smile spreading across his face. "Well, this is interesting," he says with fake amusement. Detective Haegang sits completely still. Her eyes are fixed on his wrist like a hunter watching prey. A Rolex GMT Master 3, worth more than 150 million won, she calculates silently. Then her eyes move to his swollen face. Can an ordinary prison warden really afford such an expensive watch? She thinks. The smell of corruption seems to fill the room. The warden spreads his arms as if he is being welcoming. "Detective Haegang from the National Office of Investigation, right? You've come a long way. Why don't you relax with some coffee?" She does not blink. Her posture is cold and professional. "Forget the coffee," she says calmly. "Just bring Kang Min." The room becomes silent and suffocating. The warden's cheerful expression slowly fades when he realizes she is not here for small talk. He places his hands firmly on the desk. The expensive watch ticks loudly, like a clock counting down. "Didn't the order say that his suspension begins at 2 p.m. today?" the warden asks. Her face becomes hard like stone, the light from the window outlining her sharp features. There is no sign of compromise. "There are still 30 minutes left, aren't there?" he continues. The warden gives a low and disturbing laugh, his eyes narrowing with dark meaning. "That's how much time we still have," he says quietly. Her eyes narrow as well, a strong determination burning inside them. He watches her like a predator looking at someone who does not understand the danger yet. "Detective," he says softly, leaning forward so his presence feels heavy and threatening. "Do you even know what kind of trash Kang Min is?" He slowly takes a sip of his coffee, then lowers his voice. "He beat 10 people to death," the warden says. Suddenly, he slams the cup onto the desk. It cracks loudly, and coffee spills across the table. "And you're telling me we are going to release someone like that?" he shouts. Dark drops of coffee splash onto Haegang's white blazer, but she does not move. Her determination is as strong as the prison walls around them. The silence after his shout feels louder than his anger. "You seem to have a lot of personal anger toward Kang Min," she says calmly. "Is there a specific reason?" The warden lets out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Ha!" He leans back again, his eyes turning darker as he brings up an old and bloody story. "Detective, have you heard about the massacre at the Haegang clan's Cheongdam main house in 201? He asks. Haegang remains silent, feeling that he is trying to trap her with his words. He leans closer, his face full of cruel intent. "Or maybe you were too young to remember," he sneers, his voice echoing like a nightmare from 10 years ago. "He slaughtered 10 men in cold blood," the voice said, heavy and dark, "and he left dozens of others crippled for life." The words felt like they were covered in darkness. It was known as the Kang Min massacre. Inside a prison cell, the sound of steel scraping against stone echoed in the dim light. Rough hands were sharpening a blade. "Boss, do we really need to prepare like this just to bury one useless nobody?" one man asked. "Yeah, he's some half-dead guy who has been rotting in solitary confinement for 10 years. Do you really think he can even throw a proper punch?" another prisoner said confidently. In the small and silent cell, the steady scraping of metal was the only sound. Two underlings worked on their homemade weapons, while their leader sat quietly in the shadows. His face was covered with old scars from past violence. Yang Yiwook let out a low, dry laugh that sounded rough and harsh. "Only someone who has never been crushed by Kang Min would dare to talk like that," he muttered. Suddenly, Yang Yiwook thrust his blade upward in a fast and violent move. The young prisoner gasped, jumping back as the sharp steel stopped just inches from his face. The scarred man pointed to his left eye. It was not real. It was a glass eye that reflected the weak light in the room. "You see this?" he said coldly. "Do you idiots know how this glass eye ended up in my head?" His voice was low and threatening. He leaned closer, his one real eye burning with hatred and fear. He challenged them. "I'm about to tell you a little story from the past. So listen carefully and learn, you little brats," Yang Yiwook said as he turned his back. The heavy memory filled filled the room. "You all know this, right?" he began. Haegang means the river of Nirvana. The core of the clan was the 8 divine generals, the top leaders who followed our big brother. But 10 years ago, 6 of those generals started a violent coup. They killed the big brother and his entire family. The story continued like a dark memory coming alive. The leader of the Haegang clan stood alone, covered in blood. His shirt was red as he faced the men who were once his brothers. In one single night, everything he built was destroyed. Even the powerful big brother became helpless when the traitors took his young son and his pregnant wife hostage. "Honey," his wife screamed in fear. "Dad," the child cried. Because they held his family's lives in their hands, the strong leader fell to his knees on the hard ground. "Please, spare my family," he begged. He threw away his pride to protect them. A cold voice whispered an order, telling them not to let anyone know what had happened that day. The big brother kept begging, but it did not matter. Under the red sky, the betrayal was completed quickly and cruelly. The leader struggled for air as strong hands tightened around him. "Gah!" he cried as his life was slowly taken away. Tears ran down the face of the man killing him. "Sob, you are really too cruel, big brother," Yu Han-sang wept. The story explained that Yu Han-sang always cried before he killed someone. Even now, while killing his own leader, he was crying loudly. He pressed harder, his face twisted with madness and grief. "Why did you have to mention that bastard Kang Min and bring death upon yourself? It's bad luck," Yu Han-sang cried out. Even though he was killing the big brother himself, he acted like a grieving man. Cold and merciless hands pushed the blade deeper. The dying leader made one last desperate sound. "Gwa!" he screamed as his strength left his body. A dark shadow stood against the pale light as everything ended. Blood spread across the grass, marking the fall of an era and the start of a long, dark future. Yu Han-sang stood over the body of the man he once called brother. His cries echoed in the quiet garden. "Sub, big brother," he wailed, still haunted by the memory of the leader begging to save his family. The big brother grabbed Han-sang's arm tightly. His voice was shaking and full of fear. "Han-sang, please spare your sister-in-law and your nephew. I beg you," he whispered. He threw away his pride to save the people he loved. Yu Han-sang's face twisted in pain. His teeth were clenched, and tears kept falling down his cheeks. It looked like he was crying in deep sadness, but at the same time, cold violence was building in his hand. Then, in one sudden and sickening movement, the traitor delivered the final blow. "Please, rest in peace, big brother," Yu Han-sang cried as dark red blood splashed across his gray suit. Blood sprayed into the air like a torn curtain, marking the death of the absolute leader of the Haegang clan. Yu Han-sang stood over the body with his back facing the destruction he had caused. His shadow looked like the shape of betrayal under the cold light of the courtyard. The dying man's eyes moved one last time. With his final breath, he spoke a name filled with hope. "Kang Min," he gasped softly before his life faded away into the dirt. Yu Han-sang walked away from the body without looking back. From a distance, a heartbreaking scream echoed through the night. "Honey," his wife cried when she understood what had happened. But it was not over yet. "Dad," the young boy screamed as he was held tightly by the same men who once protected his family. One of the traitors looked at Yu Han-sang and asked in a flat voice, "Boss, what should we do with the woman and the child?" Yu Han-sang stayed silent for a moment, thinking. He slowly lifted his bloody hand to his face. That small movement showed that he had no mercy left. He turned his head slightly, his eyes empty and cold. "You idiots," he said sharply. "The big brother is dead. Why would we still need hostages?" His words cut through the darkness like a blade. Above them, the red clouds of dawn swallowed the screams of the innocent. "Mom!" the child cried out as the final cruel acts were carried out. Yu Han-sang walked through the courtyard filled with rain and blood. He looked like a lonely king of destruction. A twisted smile spread across his face, and his eyes shined with terrible excitement. "Damn, the weather is really something," he laughed, enjoying the smell of rain and death in the air. The memory slowly faded into darkness. It seemed that the rebellion of the 6 generals had fully succeeded. But there was still one of the 8 divine generals left alive, the youngest one, Kang Min. At that time, Kang Min was away in Busan for work. He had gone there under Yu Han-sang's direct orders. He did not know that his whole world had already been destroyed. The memory shifted to the moment he returned. Kang Min stood at the entrance of the home he loved. In front of him was nothing but ruins. Everything was destroyed. The silence felt heavy and painful. A cold wind blew through the broken house, carrying the smell of blood and ash. Kang Min stood there alone, looking at the end of everything he knew. A deep growl rose from his chest. His jaw tightened so hard it almost felt like it would break. Then he threw his head back and screamed with pure pain and anger. "Gra!" he roared. It was not the cry of a man. It sounded like a beast being born from ashes. To Kang Min, the big brother was like a father, the narrator explained. It was the big brother who found him when he was just an orphan wandering the streets. A memory appeared. A small boy stood in the rain, cold and shaking. A hand reached out to him. "Stand up," a gentle voice said. It was the big brother. "I promise you will never be hungry again," he said warmly. He held an umbrella over the lonely boy. "Come with me," he invited kindly. That was the day Kang Min was given not just food and shelter, but also a name and a family. Young Kang Min ate very fast, as if he was scared that the food would disappear if he stopped even for a second. "Goodness, kid, no one is going to take your food." "Slow down," Big Brother said with a warm laugh. He watched the boy with the gentle care of a father. To Kang Min, this was not just a house. Big Brother's family became his own family. For the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. His life was no longer about hunger and fear, but about kindness and warmth. "Oh my, how long has this child been starving?" Big Brother's wife said softly, her voice full of motherly concern as she watched him eat. "But the world is cruel to innocent people." And then, the traitors killed them all. They slaughtered the man who saved him and the family he loved. Big Brother's laughter, once warm and kind, became only a painful memory buried in blood. "Hey, you little rascal, you're going to choke if you eat like that," Big Brother had said before, his eyes full of affection that Kang Min would never forget. All of that warmth was destroyed in one single night of violence. The anger that filled Kang Min could not be described with words. "But why did the 6 generals start the coup in the first place?" he asked. The answer was simple: greed. Big Brother had strictly forbidden the clan from dealing in drugs, illegal money lending, or human trafficking. He believed in certain principles. But in the criminal world, principles did not bring profit. Behind his back, the 6 generals were secretly earning money from those very crimes. When they realized that Big Brother was about to discover their betrayal, they decided to strike first. They chose to destroy the man who had trusted them in order to protect themselves. Hatred filled Kang Min's face completely. When he arrived at the mansion, the sound of his steps felt like the sound of death itself. Thud. Kang Min stood at the doorway. His shadow stretched long across the floor. 3 subordinates quickly pulled out their blades, but their hands were shaking with fear they did not fully understand. He stood there like death itself, his face hidden in the cold darkness of the courtyard. "Where are the generals?" Kang Min asked quietly. His voice was low and deadly. His eyes opened wide, shining with a frightening, almost inhuman light. "Where the hell are those traitors?" he roared. His anger shook the building. The men rushed at him together, desperate to survive. "Kill him!" someone shouted as they charged forward with their weapons. But Kang Min was no longer just a man. He moved like a wild predator. A blade swung toward his neck, but he simply tilted his head slightly, and it missed him. In one smooth motion, he grabbed a man's throat tight. Crack! The sound of bone breaking echoed in the hall. The man died instantly. Kang Min kicked another attacker so hard that the man flew into the air, his body already broken before it hit the ground. A third assassin attacked from the side, but Kang Min twisted his body with unbelievable speed. The knife cut nothing but empty air. In the same moment, Kang Min struck back. With a heavy and sickening thud, he smashed his foot into the man's ankle. The sound of bones breaking cut through the night. He moved like a storm of violence. His black suit slowly became stained red as he destroyed the men who had ruined his world. One of the henchmen stared at him in horror, his face pale and shaking. Before he could even understand what was happening, he lost his balance. Kang Min stood over him, his fist clenched tight. His eyes burned with cold, white anger. Wham! His punch hit like a mountain falling from the sky. The man's jaw shattered, and any chance of survival disappeared in a single blow. The body fell heavily onto the cold stone floor, joining the growing pile of dead men that marked Kang Min's path of revenge. Kang Min slowly turned his head. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp like a hunter watching prey. He looked at the few men who were still alive. "What are you waiting for?" he asked quietly, but his voice was full of deadly intent. He stepped over a dead body and stared at the terrified survivors. "I'm going to kill every single one of you, so come at me," Kang Min said. His words sounded like a final death sentence. The air felt colder. The remaining men hesitated. All their earlier confidence disappeared in front of the bloody storm standing before them. One man stared at Kang Min in complete shock. His breathing became uneven as his courage broke. That thing," he stuttered. "I was there." Yang Yi Yiwook said in the present, telling the story. Even now, the memory still haunted him. Back then, young Yiwook had looked around at the destroyed mansion and at Kang Min standing alone in the middle of the bodies. Is he even human, he had wondered. His understanding of the world shattered that night. He looked down at his fallen comrades. Fear settled deep inside his stomach. Honestly, I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared of him, young Yiwook admitted, his voice shaking as he remembered the screams from that night. Amok held his blade tightly, but his hands were trembling. His breathing was rough and fast. Kang Min, you bastard, he shouted, but his voice cracked because of fear. Kang Min's face was covered in blood and bruises, but he did not show any pain. He breathed heavily, his eyes locked onto his target with cold focus. Shut up and die, Kang Min roared as he rushed forward with inhuman speed. Blood sprayed into the air as another man fell. Gak, the victim choked as his life left him in the cold night. The memory felt as sharp as a knife. As if heaven helped me, my shiv stabbed straight into Kang Min's stomach, young Yiwook said while remembering that moment. What the? He had whispered in shock. He stared at Kang Min, waiting for him to fall. Is he dead? Young Yiwook had wondered, barely breathing. For one short moment, he thought he had won. Damn, young Yiwook, I killed the Yaksha, he had thought proudly, madness shining in his desperate eyes. But that victory was only an illusion. There was one thing I forgot, young Yiwook said quietly. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed his face tightly, stopping his celebration in an instant. Kang Min stood up again. The knife was still stuck in his stomach, but he acted like it did not matter at all. He looked down at young Yiwook like death itself. Gra! Young Yiwook screamed in fear and pain, but Kang Min's hand pressed hard against his face, not caring about his cries. Pathetic, Kang Min said coldly. His eyes burned with terrifying anger. You think you got me? He asked. Kang Min was no longer just a man. He felt like a monster. In the present, young Yiwook's voice trembled. The sound of bones breaking echoed through the courtyard. Young Yiwook screamed as pain filled his entire world. There was one horrible impact, and his life changed forever. And that's how I lost my left eye, young Yiwook said flatly. In the memory, his younger self screamed while holding his destroyed face. My eye. Kang Min walked away into the darkness without looking back. He left behind blood, broken bodies, and a ruined man crying in pain. But the massacre at the mansion was only the beginning. After killing the clan members, Kang Min went after the 6 generals. He was going to finish his revenge. He was going to avenge Big Brother. The 6 traitors stood together. Even though their hands were covered in blood, their arrogance was still there. All 5 generals are already dead. Was it really necessary to call all of us here? Gandharazio Dongwo asked. After this is over, we agree never to contact each other again, right? Kanara Chaos added coldly. Do we really need 6 of us just to kill one brat? Garuda Natasu said with clear contempt. Then a single, slow footstep echoed across the cold stone floor. Kang Min had arrived. The hunt was reaching its end. One of the generals suddenly flinched. For the first time, doubt entered his heart. Don't you see his eyes? He whispered sharply, his teeth clenching in fear. In the darkness, a figure slowly approached. It felt like unstoppable revenge walking toward them. Damn, that look in his eyes, the general thought as his heart pounded hard in his chest. Kang Min stood before them. His eyes burned with a white-hot intensity that promised nothing but destruction for those who betrayed his family. The silence broke when fear finally took control. What are you all standing there for? Yuan Sang screamed, losing his calm. Kill that bastard before he makes it up the stairs. Armed men rushed down the stairs like a desperate wave, trying to stop the storm before it reached the heart of the mansion. But Kang Min stood still in the center of it all, like a dark pillar that could not be moved. The first attack ended with a horrible sound. Crack. A single punch, filled with 10 years of rage, shattered bone. A traitor flew through the air and crashed to the ground, broken before he even landed. In flashes of black and white, Kang Min moved through the crowd. His actions were cold, fast, and deadly. Every strike was precise. Every movement ended a life. The sound of bones breaking echoed again and again through the mansion. Another man fell, then another. Kang Min looked like a demon born from the shadows. Then a huge man stepped forward. He was like a giant, his eyes glowing with bloodthirst. Kang Min's face showed nothing but pure fury. His teeth were clenched, and his jaw was tight. The fight between them was wild and brutal. Every second was filled with blood, sweat, and the sound of bones cracking. With a loud roar, the giant grabbed Kang Min and lifted him into the air. I'll break your spine, the giant shouted. A sharp snapping sound filled the room, like a gunshot. Kang Min let out a painful cry as his breath was crushed out of him. "Gra!" he screamed. Was this how everything would end? Suddenly, one of Kang Min's bloodshot eyes opened wide. It was filled with pure determination. There was no surrender in it. Like a terrifying shadow, Kang Min moved again. He reached out and grabbed the giant's head with sudden strength. Then, without hesitation, he bit straight into the giant's nose. The giant screamed in shock and panic. Just die," someone shouted desperately. Blood sprayed into the air as Kang Min tore through flesh. Then, thud, Kang Min slammed his forehead hard into the giant's face, pouring all his anger into that single strike. The impact sent deep pain through the giant's body. In the end, Kang Min stood alone. Around him were broken bodies and pools of blood. His boots were stained red with the blood of the people who had destroyed the family he loved. Yuan Sang stepped backward, his calm expression breaking completely. This is crazy," he stammered. For the first time, he truly understood that he might die. Another heavy thud echoed as one more general fell to the ground. It was a clear reminder of the price of betrayal. There was one thing the other generals forgot, the narrator said seriously. Kang Min knelt on the blood-covered stone floor. His body was full of deep wounds that could have killed a normal man many times over. The generals believed they were equal to him, or maybe even stronger. But they were wrong. Kang Min slowly lifted his head. His eyes burned with a terrifying white light. The truth was simple. Kang Min was on a completely different level. "You Han Sang, you snake," Kang Min said in a low, deadly voice. "You were the one who killed Big Brother, weren't you?" His face twisted into something almost inhuman, filled with pure rage. In that moment, he truly looked like the Yaksha. Yuan Sang stepped back in panic. He raised his hands, trying to stop what was coming. "Wait, time out, let's talk," he cried. His voice was thin and shaking with fear. He fell against the cold stone wall. His eyes were wide because he knew there was no escape. "Hold on, let's talk this through," he begged, asking for mercy he had never shown to anyone else. Kang Min stepped forward. His blood-covered hand reached out through the darkness. One step was all it took. Kang Min grabbed him and crushed his neck. He stood over Yuan Sang's broken body. His shadow covered the last bit of light in the courtyard. In that moment, the history of the Haegang clan changed forever. The massacre ended. A legend was born in blood. But the story did not end there. If the police had not shot Kang Min in the back that night, history might have been different. Kang Min screamed in pain and betrayal as the bullet entered his body. In the end, the official story said that Kang Min was responsible for all the crimes, even the ones committed by his subordinates. He was framed and sentenced to life in prison. Meanwhile, the Haegang clan fell completely into Yu Hansang's control. 10 years passed. During those 10 years, Yu Hansang never forgot about Kang Min. He bribed prison wardens to keep Kang Min locked in solitary confinement for the entire decade. He wanted to break him completely. Back in the prison cell, 3 inmates were kneeling in the dim light. One of them leaned closer and whispered, "If Kang Min really gets released, how do you think the boss will feel?" He continued quietly, "Do you still think cutting Kang Min's throat will be easy?" The scarred leader of the cell looked at them with cold eyes. "Boss, can the 3 of us really handle him?" one thug asked nervously. He looked around and added, "Shouldn't we call more people?" The scarred boss scoffed. "If it's only the 3 of us, it might be hard," he admitted calmly. "Then who else can help us?" another asked. The scarred boss gave a dark smile. "If I tell you everything now, it will ruin the surprise," he said. A sharp metallic click filled the room as he pulled out his blade. "Stop talking and just wait," he ordered. He slowly ran his tongue along the edge of the knife. His face twisted with madness. "Today, I'm definitely getting revenge for this eye," he said, staring at the blade. Suddenly, bang, the heavy steel door slammed open. A guard stood there and shouted, "All 3 of you, come out." A sharp, dangerous smile spreads across a man's face in the dark. Coming soon, he thinks, promising violence in his heart. The scene moves to the deepest part of Chung Prison's solitary cell block. The hallway is dark and made of cold stone. The only sound is the heavy, steady breathing of a man who has not seen sunlight for 10 years. Sweat drops slowly fall onto the hard concrete floor. "Who?" a voice breathes out calmly. The long, controlled breath shows a body that has been trained and hardened in darkness. Kang Min is hanging upside down in the air, doing handstand push-ups using only his thumbs for support. His back is covered in strong muscles and tattoos of the Yakuza, which move and tighten every time he pushes himself up. He forces the air out of his lungs with strict control. "Hook, who," he repeats, fully focused and disciplined. Suddenly, the the cell door bursts open with a loud crash. A prison guard stands in the light and shouts, "Inmate 1689, it's exercise time." In the hallway, the air feels heavy with tension. One thug grips his knife so tightly that his hand shakes. "You idiots, back off already," a voice orders from the shadows. The inmates stand nervously in the hallway while the cell door remains open. "Do you want to show everyone that you're scared of Kang Min?" someone mocks. Another inmate stammers in fear, unable to speak properly. Then, a huge shadow slowly steps out from the darkness of the cell. "He's out," one man whispers in shock, his eyes wide with fear. He turns to his leader and asks, "What do we do, boss?" One prisoner swallows hard. The sound of his fear feels loud in his own ears as he looks at the legend who has finally stepped out of his cage. His heart beats violently in his chest. "Her," he gasps, his vision shaking as the situation feels unreal. Kang Min looks straight through them. His eyes are empty and show no mercy. "What the hell? That skinny bastard," one inmate thinks in disbelief. He cannot accept that this lean man is the terrifying monster they were warned about. The silence suddenly breaks as heavy boots thunder down the hallway. More prisoners rush in, surrounding Kang Min. Metallic sounds fill the air as dozens of knives and sharp weapons are pulled out at the same time. The hunt has begun, and Kang Min is the target. From above, the ambush is clear. Kang Min stands alone at the end of the corridor, facing a large group of desperate, armed men. The thugs begin to laugh and sneer, feeling confident because of their numbers. "Boss, that guy looks so thin. I could knock him away with just one flick," one inmate mocks. He laughs loudly and adds, "We even gathered all these inmates just to deal with someone that small." The scar-faced boss stays silent. His face shows no emotion as he studies Kang Min carefully, waiting for any sign of weakness. The silence in the hallway becomes unbearable. The trap is fully closed. Standing calmly in the center, Kang Min looks around without fear. "They suddenly allowed me to exercise after 10 years of refusing it," he thinks. He understands that this is not freedom. It is a setup for his execution. He tilts his head slightly, and the small cracking sound of his neck echoes in the quiet corridor. "You don't even need to look closely," Kang Min thinks as his eyes grow colder. He can clearly feel the killing intent coming from every direction. Suddenly, the inmates scream together and charge forward. They roar loudly as a wave of gray prison uniforms and shining blades rush toward the lone man standing in the light. The story jumps back 3 days earlier to the dark basement of the Hang building. In the darkness, the prison warden is shaking with fear. I also kept Kang Min in solitary confinement like the previous wardens." "But why?" he stammers, his voice very soft in the heavy silence. A shadowy figure stands in the dark. The only visible light is the glowing tip of a cigarette. No, that's not the problem, Warden," Yu Hansang says calmly over the phone. His voice is smooth but frightening. Kang Min is about to be released on a suspended sentence. The warden drops to his knees. The cold floor hurts his skin as sweat runs down his face without stopping. "Then what am I supposed to do?" the warden begs. His voice is full of fear and desperation. Yu Hansang answers with a cold sneer. "That's your damn job to figure out, Warden." His words are sharp and cruel. The warden's eyes open wide as he understands the real meaning behind those words. The moment Kang Min walks out of prison in one piece, Yu Hansang says slowly, his voice filled with hatred, "You will be the one who gets fed instead." The warden gasps in fear. His breath becomes short and shaky. The shadowy figure moves slightly. His intentions are hard to understand. Now, don't panic. Just hold out your hand," Yu Hansang says calmly. The warden's hand shakes badly. "My hand? Why?" he asks in confusion and fear. A sudden flash of steel cuts through the darkness. Yu Hansang makes a cutting motion and says coldly, "Your wrist, it could be chopped off just like this." The warden screams loudly, imagining the pain. "Ah, my hand!" He struggles to breathe. His vision becomes blurry as the mental torture pushes him to the edge. His face is pale and covered in cold sweat. But instead of a blade cutting him, something heavy and cold is placed on his wrist. It is made of gold and steel. "This Rolex is the down payment," Yu Hansang says. "The expensive watch shines in the dim light. Just get rid of Kang Min. If you do, I will pay you 100 times the value of that watch." Even now, the memory of that meeting makes the warden tremble as he holds the edge of his desk tight. That day, Kang Min killed the older brother who raised him, and even his family, the warden tells Chac-young. He speaks about Kang Min's crimes, trying to see how the legal representative will react. He keeps talking nervously. Anyway, how can I allow the sentence of such a violent criminal to be suspended? As a prison warden, I cannot accept that. Sitting across from him, Chac-young watches him carefully. Her eyes are calm and cold, like a hunter studying its prey. No matter how I look at this, something is strange, she thinks. Her instincts tell her that the man in front of her is hiding something much worse than simple corruption. She narrows her eyes and notices the small twitch in the warden's jaw. What is the warden so afraid of? She wonders quietly, searching for weakness in his behavior. The warden stays bent over his desk. His hand trembles as he wipes the sweat from his face with a handkerchief. He looks like someone who is being chased. Chac-young thinks calmly and carefully. The warden continues speaking, trying to sound firm. Letting a man like that return to society is unacceptable. The tension inside the room grows stronger as the clock shows 1:56. Chac-young looks at him and says firmly, "It's almost 2 o'clock. If you've delayed enough, call him in now." The warden is surprised by her direct words. He stands up quickly. "Very well," he says, trying to sound confident. "I have already sent someone to bring Kang Min here." He walks toward the control panel. His steps are heavy and uneven. "I'll show you on the screen," he mutters, his voice shaking under pressure. He flips a switch, and the monitor turns on. Chac-young stands behind him with her arms crossed, ready to see what will happen. Suddenly, her calm expression disappears. Her eyes open wide as she sees the violence happening on the screen. The CCTV shows the narrow hallway filled with inmates, like angry hornets attacking their target. "What the hell is happening right now?" she shouts in shock. Back in the hallway, the fight has already started. One thug rushes forward with a rusty knife and yells, "Kang Min, you small-time bastard. You're going to end up in a coffin. Who do you think you are, acting tough?" Kang Min does not even blink. In a flash, he grabs the attacker's wrist with an iron grip. The thug freezes. His eyes become wide as he realizes he is not facing a normal man, but a monster. There is a loud, horrible cracking sound as Kang Min breaks the man's bones. "Coup! Ah!" The inmate screams in terrible pain. With cold precision and brutal strength, Kang Min destroys the man's arm completely. Then, without wasting a second, Kang Min kicks him hard in the groin. The thug bends forward in pain, his body folding in half. Kang Min's eyes shine with a cold and frightening light. He steps on the defeated man under his feet, silently challenging the crowd around him. Another inmate rushes forward, screaming in anger. "You bastard!" he shouts, his face full of hatred. Kang Min does not move. His heavy boot still presses down on the man lying on the floor. GHH, the man under his foot struggles to breathe as the weight crushes the air out of his lungs. The attacking inmate swings his blade wildly. Kang Min calmly leans back and avoids the slash with smooth and brutal precision. His face stays cold and controlled, filled with quiet rage. Blood sprays from the cut, but Kang Min's eyes never lose focus. He looks like a true Yaksha now, a demon created by 10 years of darkness and hatred. He throws a powerful punch that sounds like a gunshot in the narrow hallway. The hit is heavy and final. It is not just meant to defeat. It is meant to completely destroy anyone who stands in his way. The hallway becomes silent. The remaining thugs stare in horror at the broken bodies lying at Kang Min's feet. "Do you guys only know how to fight with your mouths?" Kang Min asks in a low, mocking voice. He pushes a bleeding body with his boot. "Huh? Say it, you bastard," he growls as he steps over the fallen men. The other inmates slowly step back. Their knives shake in their sweaty hands. "This is crazy," one of them whispers, finally understanding the monster they have provoked. Kang Min stands like a god of war under the dim prison lights. His foot rests heavily on the head of an unconscious inmate covered in blood. "What is that guy doing?" a prisoner thinks, frozen in fear as he looks at the bloody hallway. Kang Min looks at the survivors with empty eyes that promise only pain and violence. "Hey, you're not coming?" he asks with a sharp, cold smile that does not reach his eyes. "Then should I come to you?" The scar-faced boss at the back finally loses patience. "What are you doing, you idiots? Earn your money," he shouts loudly, forcing the next group to attack. Kang Min does not step back. Instead, he lowers himself into a relaxed boxing stance. A dangerous grin spreads across his face. "That's better. Come on," he says, welcoming them like he is inviting them to their death. The inmates rush him together in a desperate group attack. In the chaos, a knife finally slips past his defense. The blade stabs deep into Kang Min's side, piercing his ribs. Q. Kang Min gasps as sharp pain explodes through his body. He is pushed back and crashes hard against the cold iron bars of a prison cell. The inmate who stabbed him smiles proudly. Their faces are only inches apart. How does it feel? Is that enough? The inmate mocks. Before he can react, Kang Min grabs his face with one hand. His fingers press into the man's bones with terrifying strength. Oh! The prisoner screams in a high, broken voice as Kang Min throws him across the hallway. His body slides across the floor like trash. Kang Min grabs the man's arm and forces him to his knees. He traps the arm under his leg, locking it in place. You're going to feel something much hotter, Kang Min says in a low, deadly voice. And no, the prisoner stammers, already feeling his hope disappear. With brutal force, Kang Min twists and crushes the man's arm using his leg. The inmate screams in unbearable pain as his arm is completely destroyed. Even after seeing this, the other prisoners continue attacking because of greed and fear. Kill that son of a! Another inmate yells as he charges forward through the blood-covered corridor. Kang Min answers with a precise punch that crushes the man's face. The sound of bones breaking is loud and clear in the small space. He does not pause even for a moment. With cold and controlled movements, he slams another inmate's head into the concrete floor, breaking it with mechanical efficiency. An inmate tries to attack from behind. He looks for an opening, holding a rusty knife, ready to stab. Q. Kang Min grunts as the blade sinks deep into his shoulder. His body is still human. With so many enemies attacking at the same time, it is impossible to block every strike. Kang Min quickly grabs the attacker by the throat and pulls him close. He bends his body backward, preparing a direct and brutal attack. With a violent and shocking impact, Kang Min slams his forehead into the man's face. The sound is heavy, like a hammer smashing against stone. Bone and cartilage break under the force. The attacker collapses, gasping for air, his face destroyed. Now the hallway is filled with horrible sounds. Bones cracking, bodies hitting the ground, blood splashing onto the gray concrete walls. Kang Min continues the massacre with cold precision. Slowly, the corridor becomes quieter. The only sounds left are painful groans and heavy breathing. Ha, ha, Kang Min breathes roughly. His lungs burn as he finally drops to his knees on the blood-covered floor. His body is covered in wounds, and his strength is almost gone. One last inmate, driven mad by fear and desperation, charges forward. Kang Min, you bastard, he screams, putting all his remaining strength into one final attack. A dull and heavy thud echoes in the hallway as Kang Min ends the fight with cold and precise force. Silence falls. Only the dying and the unconscious remain on the floor. Kang Min struggles to hold back one last blade. The tip of the knife shakes just inches away from his eye. His muscles tremble as he uses the last of his strength. I came to collect the debt from 10 years ago, you bastard, the scar-faced boss growls through blood in his mouth. His voice is full of hatred that has been building for a decade. Kang Min looks down at him with empty eyes. There is no recognition in them. Why would I remember trash like you? Kang Min asks coldly. His voice is sharp like steel. Then his hand slowly moves toward the boss's remaining left eye. The hallway has turned into a slaughterhouse. Aya! A terrible scream fills the corridor as dozens of broken men lie scattered on the ground. Kang Min begins to walk forward. His footsteps leave dark red footprints on the tile floor. He moves calmly through the bodies of his enemies. Every step is slow and steady, heading toward his real goal. He comes out of the bloody hallway with eyes glowing like a predator. The air feels heavy around him, thick with the smell of blood and iron. His determination is absolute. In the security room, a guard watches the clear camera footage with shaking hands. Send the guards now, he shouts into his radio, panic clear in his voice as he sees Kang Min walking toward the administrative wing. Chac Young stares at the monitor. For the first time, her calm expression begins to break. He defeated that many people, she whispers, watching his movement carefully. Where is he going? She asks quietly, a cold fear growing inside her. Inside the office, the warden is nervously calling for help. Sweat soaks his shirt collar. The consequences of his corruption are finally in front of him. Suddenly, a loud and powerful crash hits the office door. Both the warden and Chac Young jump in shock. The door bursts open. A blood-covered figure stands at the entrance. It is Kang Min. Are you the warden? He asks in a low voice filled with deadly intent. Chac Young's heart pounds hard in her chest. So this is where he was heading, she realizes in shock. The warden quickly opens his desk drawer with shaking hands and pulls out a loaded handgun. Kang Min, you damn persistent bastard, the warden screams. His fear turns into desperate anger, like a trap trapped animal with nowhere to run. Kang Min stands at the doorway. Blood from the fight is still dripping from his uniform. "You are the problem," the warden shouts, pointing the gun at Kang Min's chest. "If you die, everything will become peaceful." Kang Min's eyes narrow. His pupils shrink with burning rage. "Stop talking nonsense," he thinks. He refuses to accept the warden's attempt to blame him for everything. Without saying another word, Kang Min rushes forward with shocking speed, even though he is badly injured. "You're coming with me," he says coldly, reaching out for the man who planned his death. Suddenly, loud gunshots explode inside the office. "Just die already," the warden screams as he fires wildly. Bright flashes from the gun light up the room, creating long, shaking shadows on the walls. But Kang Min moves like a shadow. He dodges through the bullets and closes the distance quickly. He raises his fist and punches the warden hard in the face. Blood sprays across the room. The hit is powerful and crushing. Then Kang Min grabs him and slams him violently onto his own desk. The desk shakes from the impact. The warden bends in pain and struggles to breathe. Chac Young stands frozen in shock, unable to move for a moment. The warden slides off the desk and falls onto the floor like a broken doll. "Ghh," he groans weakly as Kang Min stands over him like death itself. The office smells of gunpowder and blood. Kang Min lifts his blood-stained boot, ready to crush the warden's head and end it. His shadow covers the man completely. "Stop. At this rate, you'll kill him," Chac Young finally shouts. She rushes forward, trying to stop him before he crosses the final line. She stands firmly in front of him despite the destruction around her. "I said stop it," she yells again. "Murder is not allowed," she declares, her voice strong in the heavy silence. Kang Min does not move. He stands over the office floor covered in blood, his boot still pressing down on the terrified warden. The room feels suffocating. The smell of blood and fear fills the air. Slowly, Kang Min turns his head toward the only other person still standing. His eyes burn with cold, dangerous light. "And who the hell are you?" he asks in a low, threatening voice. He stares at her sharply. "Did Yu Hansang send you to?" Chac Young keeps her position. She points her service pistol directly at his chest. Inside, her heart shakes as she looks into his empty, monster-like eyes. Her hands stay steady, but sweat forms on her forehead. On the wall behind them, the clock ticks loudly. Tick-tock. It is exactly 2 p.m. The time for Kang Min's official release has arrived. The deadline has come. The monster is no longer just a prisoner. And in that moment, everyone in the room feels that the world is about to change forever. The pressure in the room feels heavy on Chac Young's chest. It is like a physical force pushing her, forcing her to choose between her own safety and her duty. Moving quickly despite the chaos, she pulls out an official document and holds it up in the light. "Kang Min, by the decision of the Seoul High Prosecutor's Office Chief," she shouts loudly, her voice cutting through the tension like a siren. "As of 2 p.m. today, the execution of your sentence is suspended." Kang Min's large, blood-covered fist stops just inches away from her face. The air from the halted punch brushes her hair. Chac Young does not blink. She keeps staring into his eyes, waiting to see if he will choose to kill or accept his freedom. The wild rage in Kang Min's eyes slowly fades. In its place appears a cold and thoughtful look as he understands his new situation. He looks at the document, then back at the investigator who just saved the warden's life. "You're letting me out?" he asks quietly. At that moment, the Yaksha is free, and his hunt for Yu Hansang is about to begin. Later that night, a white sedan drives fast along an empty highway. Its headlights cut through the darkness, and the engine roars in the quiet outskirts of the city. Inside the car, the air smells like blood. Kang Min presses his hand against the deep wound in his side, breathing heavily from the pain. Chac Young keeps her eyes on the road. Blood stains Kang Min's fingers as he holds his stomach tighter. Now that the fight is over, the pain and blood loss are finally catching up to him. Chac Young glances at him from the corner of her eye. Her face shows concern, but also deep suspicion. "We need to go to a hospital first," she says firmly. "Forget the hospital," Kang Min replies immediately in a low voice. "Get off at the toll gate and stop at the first veterinary clinic you see." "A veterinary clinic? Why?" she asks, confused, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Kang Min gives a faint, painful smile. "If we go to a hospital right now, I'm willing to bet we'll both end up dead," he says calmly. He knows their enemies are already watching and waiting. As she drives, Chac Young thinks about his criminal record. A cold-blooded killer who murdered his own boss and that man's entire family, she remembers. Why did they order me to release someone like this, she wonders, feeling uneasy. Suddenly, Kang Min leans forward sharply. "Hold the wheel tight," he shouts with intense urgency. emergency. What? Chac Young screams as she looks into the rearview mirror. A huge heavy-duty truck crashes into the back of their car with terrible force. Metal screams. Glass shatters. Their sedan is crushed and thrown forward like a toy. The impact sends the car flying over the barrier. It flips violently as pieces of metal and glass scatter across the road in sparks. Inside the spinning car, Chac Young screams. Kang Min's eyes widen. If you want to live, stay alert, he shouts, even as his own body is thrown around inside the car. The world becomes a blur of darkness and flashing lights as the car keeps rolling again and again. Finally, it crashes down and slides to a stop. The white sedan lies upside down on the dark highway. Smoke rises slowly from the engine into the night air. For a short moment, everything becomes quiet. Then several black sedans arrive and surround the wreck. Dozens of men in dark suits step out. Their figures are lit by headlights as they pull out weapons and close in on the crashed car. Inside the crushed car, Kang Min slowly turns his head towards Chac Young. Hey, are you still alive? He asks in a low, rough voice. Why yes, she answers weakly, coughing because of the dust and smoke. Her eyes widen as she realizes something. During the crash, Kang Min had covered her with his body. He had taken most of the impact himself. This man, she thinks in shock. Did he actually try to protect me? The thought confuses her because it does not match the image she has of him. The broken car makes cracking sounds as it settles on the road. Steam rises from the engine. Their escape is over. Now they must fight to survive. A blood-covered hand pushes out through the shattered window. Fingers scrape against the road as metal screeches loudly. Kang Min pulls himself out of the wreckage. He stands up slowly, unsteady but determined. In front of him, many armed men are already waiting. It would be a shame to leave without saying goodbye, he says coldly. Blood runs down his face, but his eyes are sharp like a predator's. Blood drips from his shoes onto the highway as he takes one heavy step toward the assassins. The men in black suits do not hesitate. With a loud shout, they rush toward him, raising steel pipes and knives. A frightening smile spreads across Kang Min's face. If we're going to do this, he thinks calmly, let's make it worth watching. He presses his foot hard against the road and launches himself forward with explosive speed. Come at me with everything you've got, he roars as he jumps straight into the middle of them. He knows the situation is bad. No matter how strong you are, it's hard to win against a crowd, he thinks clearly. Still, he moves with brutal precision. He leaps up and drives his knee directly into the closest attacker's face. But he understands a harsh truth. Even a skilled fighter cannot easily handle more than 3 enemies at once. The circle around him keeps getting smaller. He smashes his elbow into one man's jaw and breaks another man's arm in one quick movement. The sound of bones cracking echoes in the night. When you're outnumbered, momentum is everything, he tells himself. If he stops moving, he will die on this empty highway. Kang Min weaves between attacks, dodging a wild swing from a mobster. You son of a, the man shouts angrily. Kang Min's eyes glow coldly in the dark. With a powerful kick, he hits another attacker in the chest. The man is thrown backward, gasping as he crashes onto the road. One man lies on the cold asphalt, breathing weakly. Kang Min walks past him without looking back. Under the car headlights, his figure looks like a shadow of death. Blood spreads across his shirt from the deep wound in his stomach. The red stain grows larger, but he ignores the pain. Another attacker falls as blood sprays into the air. You have to completely destroy the first few men, Kang Min thinks calmly. His mind works like that of a veteran fighter. He knows that shocking brutality at the beginning can break the enemy's will. He walks forward through the chaos. You must make them feel real fear, he calculates. A frightened enemy is easier to defeat than a confident one. The remaining mobsters hesitate. Their hands shake as they grip their metal pipes. For the first time, they understand that they are not fighting an ordinary man. One of the men hissed quietly, while his partner started to stutter in fear. What the hell is he? They wondered. Kang Min understood something important. He had to make them feel like they were fighting alone, even though they had many people on their side. He used their fear against them. Are you coming or not? Kang Min asked in a low and deadly voice that echoed in the silence. He watched them hesitate. Once they start doubting and hesitating, he thought, that is your chance to win. Fine. Then I will come to you, Kang Min said. He stood in front of the burning highway wreckage, watch, his shadow moving in the firelight. When a large group begins to hesitate in front of one man, it is already game over, he calculated as he stepped forward and broke the last bit of their courage. Two men tried to act brave and attacked him from behind, shouting loudly. "Look at this pathetic loser," one of them screamed. "You really think you are special, don't you?" the other mocked. Kang Min ignored their empty words. When they lose their unity, he thought, you can defeat them one by one. He suddenly turned around with fast and violent movement and punched one man hard under the chin. The man's head snapped back with a sickening crack. At the same time, a heavy iron pipe hit Kang Min on the back with a dull sound. But he did not even move. It felt like his body was made of iron instead of flesh. He quickly turned, grabbed the pipe in the middle of the swing, and held it tightly with his bloody hands. The mobster's eyes became wide with fear as he realized his mistake. Kang Min pushed forward and slammed his palm into the man's face. A painful cry came out of the thug's mouth before everything turned dark for him. The highway became a battlefield. The mobsters fell to the ground one after another, while Kang Min stood over them like an unstoppable force. One man tried to curse him, but fear stopped his words. Kang Min lifted his boot over a fallen man's head for a second. Then he brought it down, ending another voice. He stood in the middle of the road, surrounded by the painful sounds of the injured. One man choked on his own blood. Another screamed, "My leg! My leg!" A third man cried into the road, "My eye! I can't see!" Kang Min did not react to their suffering. Sweat and blood ran down his face. He breathed heavily and sharply. "What now?" he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Do you want me to go again?" He challenged the few men who were still standing. His eyes burned with dark and endless anger. The remaining mobsters trembled in fear. Then a strong and cold voice broke through the silence. "Move aside, you useless pieces of trash," the voice ordered. The underlings quickly stepped away. A huge man walked forward. He had an X-shaped scar carved across his face. His eyes were locked on Kang Min with killing intent. "Don't you dare call yourselves gangsters after this," he roared. This man was Ashura, the lord of the 5 provinces, a giant figure in the underworld who was tired of watching his men lose. The air made a sharp sound as Ashura threw a punch as fast and powerful as a machine piston. The massive fists of the two powerful men moved toward each other, tearing through the space between them. Ashura's punch hit Kang Min on the head. Blood sprayed into the air, and Kang Min was almost lifted off his feet from the impact. "You have become weak, Kang Min," Ashura mocked in a loud and heavy voice as he continued to attack. Ashura grabbed Kang Min by the collar tightly, his knuckles turning white as he prepared to finish him. "No," he whispered to himself in surprise. "Did I just become stronger?" he wondered as he tested the power of the legendary Yaksha. With a loud roar, Ashura lifted Kang Min high into the air and slammed him down onto the asphalt with bone-breaking force. "You little punk," Ashura shouted, his face full of angry victory. The road cracked under the heavy impact. The sudden and brutal attack changed the flow of the fight. Blood splashed across the gray road in thick, dark lines, marking the terrible struggle between the two powerful men, while silent cars stood still under the dark night sky. After the brutal fight with the boss, Kang Min slowly dragged his injured body towards Cha Siang. His body was becoming colder every second. The loud noises of the night slowly faded, and everything turned into a heavy and suffocating silence that felt like death. A painful groan came from one of the fallen men. His legs were shaking without control, because the shock from the impact was still running through his broken nerves. A rough and uneven gasp filled the air as bloody shoes scraped against the ground. It was the sound of a predator trying to stand in the middle of blood and broken bodies. Chaos collapsed onto the road. Blood flowed from her mouth as she watched a pair of heavy boots walk past her. She could only breathe weakly and make a faint rattling sound while the world spun around her. One of the subordinates turned to the giant man with the scar on his face and shouted in panic, "Director, Kang Min is escaping. Should we go after him?" But Ashura only watched Kang Min's back with cold understanding and contempt. "You idiot," Ashura barked, his voice rough like stones grinding together. "Do you really think Kang Min would run away and leave me alive? I am the man who killed his boss." His confidence did not shake at all. A hand grabbed tightly onto the rough fabric of a jacket. The fingers turned white from desperation as a life stood on the edge of death. Cha Siang lifted her trembling hand and looked up with wide, frightened eyes. She held onto the only powerful figure left standing on that road. "Take me with you," she begged, her voice breaking because of fear. Kang Min stood with his back facing her. Under the bright highway lights, his body looked like a huge dark shadow. He looked down at the woman holding his leg. His face showed no emotion in the darkness. "From now on, this place will become a bloodbath," he said coldly. There will be no good or evil, no friends or enemies. His shadow covered her face. His eyes looked cold and dangerous. This is not a place for a coward like you, he growled. His words hurt more than any weapon. He roughly pushed her hand away from his pants in one harsh movement, completely ignoring her plea. So leave while you still can. Run away, he ordered. Then he added in a dark and final tone, once you step into this world, there is no getting out. Even if you want to. Without looking back, Kang Min slowly walked away, leaving her behind. Young reached out toward him in pain, but he did not stop. She pulled out her gun and aimed it at his back. You arrogant bastard, she hissed through her teeth. Her hand was shaking as she pointed the gun at the man who was calmly walking toward the large truck. Kang Min, stop right there. Stop, or I'll shoot, she screamed, her voice breaking with panic. Damn it, do you think I won't do it? The hammer of the gun clicked into place. Kang Min did not even slow down. His calm voice drifted back to her. Yes, I know you won't, he said. His complete confidence was more frightening than any threat. Xiang's finger shook on the trigger. The name Kang Min stopped in her throat. The overwhelming presence of the Yaksha froze her body and her will. A bitter feeling filled her eyes. This dog, she thought angrily, her hatred for him growing even stronger. Kang Min continued walking through the bright headlights. The gun was still aimed at his heart, but he never turned around. He stepped over the fallen bodies and focused only on the large transport truck waiting in the middle of the chaos. Suddenly, another mobster ran toward him with a desperate scream. You son of a bitch, the man shouted, holding a weapon in a foolish attempt at revenge. Kang Min quickly turned his body with smooth and natural movement. The weapon cut through empty air where his head had been just a second before. He struck back with a powerful punch that hit the man hard in the stomach. The air was forced out of the mobster's lungs, and a painful choking sound came from his mouth. Kang Min then climbed into the driver's seat of the truck. The heavy door slammed shut. Ashura's loud voice echoed across the road. Are you really running away, Kang Min? He mocked. Where is the Yaksha I used to know? His long shadow stretched across the highway. Then the engine of the huge truck roared to life. The truck's tires screamed loudly and smoke rose as they gripped the road for escape. The mobsters ran away in panic like frightened rats when the huge steel truck rushed forward. Av! One of them screamed as he jumped to the side of the road. You crazy bastard! Another shouted as the strong wind from the speeding truck almost knocked him down. The massive truck crashed into the line of black sedans blocking the road. There was a loud metallic roar as it smashed through them. The smaller cars were thrown aside like broken toys. The truck forced its way through the barricade and disappeared into the dark night. Inside the truck, Kang Min's face glowed under the dashboard lights. His teeth were showing in a wild and crazy smile. Ha! He laughed loudly. His laughter echoed over the highway even after the truck was gone. Ashura stood there, watching the truck vanish into the darkness. The red tail lights slowly faded, the only sign that the Yaksha had ever been there. Next to him, one mobster fell to his knees on the empty highway. The weight of their failure filled the cold night air. Rage twisted Ashura's scarred face. His eyes were wide and filled with bloodthirsty madness. Kang Min, he whispered into the wind, his voice low and shaking with anger. You deserve to die by my hands, don't you think? His words hung in the darkness like a promise of future violence. Far away from the destroyed highway, the National Investigation Headquarters stood tall like a silent building made of steel and glass. Its clean and quiet outside appearance hid the cold thoughts of the people inside. Inside a dark office, the NIH director, Minung Hun, sat with his fingers locked together. His face showed no emotion, only cold indifference. We must cancel his stay of execution immediately and place Kang Min on the most wanted list, he ordered in a firm and final voice. Kao Zhang, her face bruised and her eyes tired, leaned forward over the desk. Sir, she said urgently, her voice shaking. Director, we don't have much time. If Kang Min manages to leave the country, that is not possible, Minung Hun interrupted sharply. His confident tone silenced her at once. He leaned back in his chair as the shadows in the room grew longer. The Haegang clan has become far too powerful, he explained calmly. What do you mean? Kao Zhang asked, frowning in confusion. Their boss, Yu Hansang, is very clever. Like a snake, Minung Hun said. For the past 10 years, he has been laundering huge amounts of money and spreading it throughout the political world. His words revealed how deep the corruption had spread in the country. Kao Zhang stared at him as everything started to make sense in a terrible way. The police force alone can't control the Haegang clan anymore, Minung Hun admitted. So you released Kang Min to use him against them, she asked, finally understanding how desperate the agency had become. The director looked at her with cold, steady eyes. He was a man who had given up his morality for results long ago. Kao Zhang sat silent. She could see her tired and injured reflection on the smooth surface of the desk. Fight fire with fire, she thought bitterly. You use one poison to fight another, she said quietly, summing up the director's dark plan. She bit her lips so hard that it started to bleed. The pain helped her stay calm as she tried to accept the betrayal she had just discovered. The silence in the room became heavy. Then she noticed him pushing the documents aside. Why are you closing the file? She asked, feeling nervous. Minung Hun let out a dry laugh without any real joy. You entered the police academy as the top student in your class, he said slowly, and you graduated as valedictorian. He continued listing her achievements in a voice that sounded almost respectful. For 3 years in a row, you received the highest ratings in the Elite Investigation Bureau. Then his tone changed into something darker. He leaned forward, and the light in the office made deep shadows on his face.
If you enjoyed this story and want to know what happens next, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment part 2 below. Your support really helps, and the next episode is going to be even crazier.